There are two certainties in this world. One is that we don't last forever. The other, not all of us die a hero.
If you fight in the war for your country, you're a hero.
And those in the greatest generation were just that.
This particular one is November of 1942. It would say where he went and the date, how long the flight was.
Francis Ferry loved to live life from above.
See, this says Okinawa, Japanese fleet, an attack, raid. That's what he has written here. Who was my dad? I don't know, he did a little of everything.
Ferry enlisted at 22 during the peak of the Second World War. He quickly rose to the naval ranks as one of the military's elite pilots.
I'm amazed when I look at some of those World War II planes with the open cockpit. I don't know, I couldn't. It's scary enough, you know, to have coverage over you, but to be open and nothing above you like that. He was very fortunate. There was one mission, he had like 86 holes in his plane, but he himself was not actually hurt.
But it was on
April the 7th in 1945.
when Ferry left his mark.
The weather was really poor that day, so they had to drop down in under the clouds to see the ship.
The ship was the Japanese Yamato, the biggest battleship ever built. It's a memory decades later Ferry couldn't forget.
I dove on the Yamato 4 times. I was recorded with the hip in the stern of the Yamato.
Now it's just that, a memory.
Contributing to the infliction of damage and the subsequent sinking of the Japanese ship.
In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn.
Ferry lived to be 102. He made one final trip to the heavens last December. His ashes now rest next to his beloved Genevieve, married almost 80 years.
Fran was a special aviator.
Cameron Park's Chuck Wall also knows a little something about flying. But how?
That question gets me all the time. My grandfather flew in World War II, flew B-17s in the Army Air Corps. My dad flew in Vietnam. I grew up around Navy, had an aviation career, and it's in my blood.
And he bleeds it every day. He took that passion to new heights when he opened Vultures Row Aviation, a plane restoration business.
I grew up doing it, and I'm still doing it. Some would say I'm still growing up.
Every inch of the 15,000 square foot hangar is stuffed with relics from the past.
It's insane. I work 7 days a week. I go through shoes every 4 or 5 weeks.
It's all to preserve history.
2,000 horsepower built in the 30s, designed in the 30s, built in the 40s. What more can you say?
Vultures Row is one of a handful of shops in the country that restores World War II warbirds.
This is as good as it gets. This is rare, to have these kinds of fighters all under one roof with the history of some of these airplanes that are in here.
Some that even saw combat.
It's a big deal.
Wall uses modern technology to machine decades-old parts, some of which don't have instruction manuals. That's because the mission in the 40s was to pump out as many planes as possible to win a war.
Every single one of those men and ladies that worked on these airplanes were craftsmen. They knew how to make things, build things without computers, without calculators. They built a heck of an airplane.
Planes similar to the one once flown by Francis Ferry.
He visited the shop 3 times. He loved coming in here, bringing his logbook, sharing his notes, talking about the airplanes.
The two connected by 2 wings and a tail fin.
We would just sit here for hours and talk about his experiences, and it's just mind-blowing to hear those personal stories.
When Ferry passed away, Wall was asked to give him a proper send-off.
So today we're going to get in the SNJ and do a flyover for Fran Ferry for his internment.
A hero's goodbye.
And I'm like, wow.
For a man who continues to soar above.
It was an honor and a privilege. I think he would have been pretty amazed.
For photojournalist Victor Nieto, Jason Marks, KSUR 3 News.